Sir, I'll just give a brief introduction to you, to my students.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar in retailing management. So, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our resource person of the day, Dr. Jay Krishnan. Yes. Dr. Jayakrishnan S. is an agriculture graduate from Kerala Agricultural University and has a postgraduate diploma in rural management from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. His industry experience is around 2 years in insurance sector as a sales manager with ICICI Prudential in bank assurance and agency channel. He worked with Central Institute of Fisheries Technology in National Agriculture Innovation Project as Senior Research Fellow for nearly 1 year. His academic experience is of 4 years as Assistant Professor Marketing Area with Bhavan's Royal Institute of Management, Cochin and SCMS School of Technology and Management, Cochin, India. His interest areas include retail management, rural marketing and neuromarketing. He also has done his postgraduate certificate program in advertising and public relations from Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, and faculty development program from Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. He completed his fellow program in marketing management from National Institute of Industrial Engineering, Mumbai on December 2016. Sir has presented papers in national and international conferences and has published papers in credible international journals. Sir is actively engaged into various activities like book editing, book review, contribution of book chapters and developing case studies. Sir, we are very happy to have you here on this day in our virtual classroom. So now I request resource person of the day, okay, Dr. Jayakrishnan S, okay, to begin the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and opportunity. So, as per the topic, which is already we have, I have mentioned, we'll be looking at with respect to the evolution of Indian retail sector, followed by the specific case of rural retailing India, and next part we'll be looking at with respect to how analytics is going to change retail industry. So, from the traditional point, if you look at retail industry has evolved across globe. Okay, so but now, if you look at technology adoption is extensively done in retail sector, and technology is going to change retail sector. So let's look at with respect to how retail industry has evolved in India, followed by how adoption of technology to improve retail business. Okay, before we start, okay, this is the contents what you are going to discuss. In case if you have any questions or any doubts, feel free to stop me and we will clarify it, or otherwise you can have the questions after the session. So let's look at with respect to the retail. We'll be discussing about a retail and intro. Then we'll look at with global retailers, retail industry in India, and a special case of rural retailing India, followed by conclusion. So we in between you will have video also, some of the videos which comprehensively covers our topic also. So before we start, I have a question to all of you. So is there anything common between the local grocery store near to you and Big Bazaar? If something is common, what it is common for both these entities?
Number of transactions will be higher in the Big Bazaar.
Okay, then.
Number of products.
Quality differs, sir.
Okay, quality differs, then.
Availability of products.
Okay, availability of products, then.
Sir, the number of discounts or the MRP changes, sir.
Okay. Discounting is quite different. Okay.
Sir,
Fine.
and customer walking differs.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Customer walking differs.
Customers.
Okay, customers. Then.
Sir, the retailing strategies what they use is differs.
Okay, retailing strategy they adopt is different. Okay. Are they into same business?
Sir, we can tell yes, but not exactly the same business.
Why you cannot tell it is not the same business?
So because their local grocery store owners, they have less products to offer to the customers.
Okay. Leave the assortment part. Okay, assortment is not what we are looking at. Are they into more or less similar business? That is the question.
Yeah, yes, sir. Similar business.
Okay, so both of them are retailers only. Okay, let it be a local grocery store, Big Bazaar. Both are into retailing and both of them are retailer. But the classification differs in terms of being organized and unorganized. Your local grocery store would be an unorganized retailer and Big Bazaar is an organized player. Okay, so that is something which is very common for the local retail outlets and Big Bazaar. But the scale of operation actually differs and we classify them as organized and unorganized. Okay. So let's go to the next thing. Okay, so the concept of retailing actually was derived from the French word retailer, meaning to cut or a piece of or break bulk. Okay, so in retail business, what exactly a retailer does is that he purchases the inventory or products and he breaks into smaller parts, which makes or smaller sizes or smaller numbers, which makes it accessible to the individual consumers. So the theoretical definition, if you look at, it's defined as activities or steps used to sell a product or service for personal consumption or household consumption. So primarily the retailers focuses more on an individual consumers or in business terms, we say it as business to consumers. So it's for personal or domestic consumption, retailers are selling the product or services. So let's look at the global retailers. Okay, if you look at, you have top 10 retailers. Okay, this is a recent report. Okay, 2018 is a recent report. If you go to some of the consultancies like PwC, Deloitte, etc., you will get reports about how retail industry is evolving and what are the changes which is happening in retail among retailers at global level. And also you have Indian specific report also. So if you look at, you have the top three retailers, which is in based on the country of origin is US. You have first Walmart, then Costco is there, then Amazon is there. Fourth is a retailer from Germany, which is Schwarz Group. Okay. If you look at Amazon is having a place or it is ranked among the top three retailers in the world. So what is the difference between Amazon and other retailers? You have Walmart is there, Costco is there, Schwarz Group is there, Kroger is there, Walgreens, Home Depot is there, Aldi and Co, GmbH is that's a German, then CVS, and fourth you have Tesco, which is a UK-based retailer. So what is the difference between Amazon and other retailers?
Sir, as of now, I can say Walmart has a store where we can go visit and see those products and then buy. Like actually see those products, feel those products, and buy. But Amazon, in the case of Amazon, it's not the same. Whatever we see online, we purchase it.
Okay, you are somewhat correct. Okay, can you make it more simple actually?
Sir, it is an online store, Amazon, and Walmart is an offline store.
Exactly. Okay. If you look at all the other retailers, most of them are store based. Okay. Or you can take the case they have predominantly omni channel. Amazon strictly till now it was just an online retailer. Okay. So now they have started a concept store in Seattle. Okay. So Seattle, if you go, Amazon Go is one of the store which they have recently started. Even though they have stake in some of the, okay, for example, they have taken stake in more actually, and recently Big Bazaar also. But they have stake, but Amazon actually, if you look at strictly speaking, they never had any store outlets across the world. Okay, but on the other hand, if you look at Costco or Walmart or Kroger, etc., all of them are store-based retailers. Okay, so if you look at that is something which is very interesting. Okay, so a retailer without owning a stores is heading the third position across the globe. Okay, look at the countries of operation. Walmart was 28 and Schwarz Group was 30. So if you look at the scale of operation itself, Walmart has an edge, okay, because Walmart is spread across the world, either directly or indirectly. But interesting part, if you look at with respect to this ranking, is that Amazon, okay, Amazon is actually from bottom it has reached to top, okay, that is it's among the top 3 retailers in the world, and still it is growing. So that's, if you look at that, is something which is very interesting part of retailing, okay. So how technology, because Amazon's backbone was its technology, and over a period of time they could encash upon this. Slowly they are looking at with respect to advancement of store experience. And if you look at most of their retail outlets, okay, the technology is so high, okay. Recently they have come up with a smart card, okay, smart card which directly identifies the product, and you need not the checking process and checkout process very simple, okay. That you enter your Amazon ID, or you take the case of an Amazon application, the billing automatically happens. You need not go to the POS counter, okay, the point of sale counter, and pay it. It automatically deduct the amount from your application, and you can just leave, buy the product, and you can just leave the store. So that way, Amazon actually is going or growing as one of the top retailers in the world, and you have a stiff competition which is happening between Walmart and Amazon, because these two are trying to compete with each other. Let it be any market, okay. So that's the scenario in global level. Let's look at with respect to the origin of Indian retail, okay. So Indian retail, you have historically, if you look at Indian retail, you had a retail which is happening in India primarily through our weekly fairs. Then you and next level we have our mom and pop stores. Okay, primarily we call it as our neighborhood stores or convenience stores, which we see near to our neighborhood. And next level we have the PDS outlets. Okay, this was a government effort to have an organized retailing effort, so that essential goods are supplied to the common people. Okay, so that was first organized effort which was government supported. Later on, with the liberalization, and we have some licensing agreement, you have a lot of retailers coming up, and we have modern formats which came, or modern retailers which started their operations in India. You have some of the when you take the case historically, you have some of the retailers which is present, but over a period of time after 90s, actually you have a lot of retailers entering Indian market, and they have started their operations. So initial phase, okay, pre-90s, you have manufacturers, okay, so you have the manufacturing company itself starting their outlets. And next level, okay, 90 to 1991, you have liberalization, and you have a lot of pure play retailers, okay, pure play retailers, and then they are primarily into retailing business. Otherwise, pre-90s, with limited investment and limited capital availability, and with limited products availability, you never had retailing business flourishing in India. 2005 to 2010 was something which is very interesting, because you have substantial investment which has happened in Indian retail sector, and you have retailers focusing on other categories. Okay, at that point of time, you have retailers like Spencer's who have just entered the market, and even though Spencer's have a history, okay, because predominantly Spencer's Spencer's the retailer was present during the British era, but the flourishing part which has happened is after 90s, once the economy got liberated. 2010 onwards, you have FDI flow which has been increased, because India was one of the potential retail markets which is waiting to be explored by most of the retailers. We have the policy part actually, which is something which is very interesting about Indian retail sector. Okay, so primarily, if you look at, you have an FDA approval of 15% in multi-brand retail, 100% in single brand retailing. Okay, food retailing, there is a relaxation which has been provided by the government, where 100% FDI is allowed by the government. So that way, if you look at with the increasing share actually, so increasing investment, Indian retail sector has flourished. Okay, this is in general. If you look at your organized retailing, if you look at, still it is 7 to 10%, and it is projected to grow by 24% in 2020. Okay, but with the current scenario, maybe you can assume that the growth won't be touching 24%. So, like I already mentioned, with respect to the FDI, you have 100% in single brand retailing. You have IKEA, one of the single brand retailers. Then Zara is an apparel retailer. So you have a lot of retailers who are in single brand retailing, but multi-brand retailing is where most of the retailers are very keen to invest. So that way, if you look at maybe over a period of time, you can expect that 100% FDI in multi-brand retailing, and you have more competition in Indian retail sector. But looking at the current trend, if you look at, you have dominance, which has been fighted between Walmart, Reliance, and Amazon. Okay, so if you look at two of the prominent retailers are out of picture. Okay, so if you look at Big Bazaar was one of the major, that is a Future Group was one of the major retailers. But if you know now the stake has been moved to Reliance, and Reliance will be moving as one of the largest retailer in Indian markets. Second part, if you look at More was the next retailer. Already, you know that the capital stake is taken by Amazon and Samara Capital in More. So if you look at the controlling stake has been already sold to this group by Aditya Birla Group. So you have only two or three major retailers, and you have some of the regional players like DMart is there. DMart predominantly in Central India. So otherwise, if you look at it, is just limited to few players like Tata is also there, but Reliance is in terms of scale, which is a bigger retailer compared with all other players along with Amazon, Walmart. These are the three prominent players which will be fighting for a share in Indian retail. So let's continue the discussion. Okay, so every year, if you look at A.T. Kearney, which is a consultancy, global consultancy publishes GRDA, what we call as Global Retail Development Index. Okay, so primarily this will give an idea about which are the countries which is having the higher retail potential. Okay, so they look into the different aspects like market attractiveness. So market attractiveness in the sense the potential of the market and how far the retail market is attractive for business investment, and also the country risk. Okay, so country risk we are looking at with respect to the political and economic stability. So, like the previous year, it was India which was ranked the first. This year, it is that is 2019. It was ranked second. Now, China is the number one retail country which has a higher retail potential. When you look at with respect to Indian retail, one of the major issue what we face is that the higher operating cost. Okay, so we have inefficiencies with respect to supply chain, and also you have a low bargaining power with the vendors. So these are some of the factors which may affect our growth in the Indian retail industry, followed by the higher real estate cost. Okay, so one of the major challenges when you look at with respect to retail development in India is that lack of proper planning. Okay, so the cities actually, if you look at, it is already being cluttered, or you take the case, the real estate or the land cost has increased, and the availability of land also has come down because of the poor planning part. Okay, so that way, if you look at this lack of availability of real estate cost and the cost involved in developing that particular land, actually is one of the critical issues what Indian retail industry is facing. So these are some of the important things what you need to keep in mind when we look at, or when you try to understand Indian retail sector. Okay. So looking back, if you look at currently the share, if you look at it is 88%, and 88% is still in unorganized sector, and you have 21. Okay, the projected, okay, 2021 it should be 18%. It should be for organized retailer, and 75% still it is there in the unorganized sector. So that way, if you look at, and online, if you look at the pie is just 7%. So that makes Indian retail sector very interesting because the market is still not saturated. Okay, saturated in the sense when you look at abroad markets or global markets, the 75% to 80% is organized. Okay, so you have a smaller pie or a smaller percentage of unorganized retailers. So that way, if you look at most of the Western countries, for that matter, the market is already saturated. On the other hand, countries like India, China, then you have some of the East Asian countries, etc. There is a larger potential for retail industry, or larger potential for retailers to explore. So that's why these two countries, or some of these two Asian countries, becomes the prime focus for retail industry for global retailers. So take let's look at how the evolution has happened. We have a small video which is being created by NFT. Okay, so this video, you don't have a better video to comprehend how the retail sector in India evolved. Okay, so let's look at how this evolution has happened, and afterwards we will continue the discussion.
Sir, we cannot see the video, sir.
Okay, just a second.
Yes, sir.
One billion people, 12 million plus retailers, an industry worth 200 billion US dollars. India has become the destination for fashion and lifestyle products retailing, with highest number of outlets in the world at 12 million compared to the 0.9 million in the USA. India is certainly a market which the world is eyeing today. India gave the IT industry a new direction in the late 90s and is now forging towards France in the area of fashion promotion. Several Indian and international FIs are setting up specialized division for retail funding. The history of retailing can be traced back to the era when barter system came into existence. People of each village and town assembled on the outskirts in an open field to exchange goods. This gradually became a weekly activity and known as Shandy Day. Since times immemorial, we can recall the retailing of entertainment in the fairs of the Indus Valley civilization, which gives us one of the earliest examples of retailing of services. The rich landlords saw an opportunity and opened up their backyards to store and barter a whole range of basic necessities of day-to-day requirement. This was the first step and the first phase in organized retailing. The introduction of currency gave rise to commerce activities, and small entrepreneurs set up shops to sell groceries, medicine, hardware, etc. The small kirana, or general merchants as they are popularly known in India, became an integral part of the daily lives of people, and retailing gained recognition as a professional activity. The year 1863 marked the entry of Durrant and Spencer's into India, which set the ball rolling for professional organized retailing in India. The post-British era forced the government of India to set up a public distribution system in the form of fair price shops to distribute essential commodities like rice, wheat, sugar, etc. This marked the second phase of organized retailing in India. Closely followed by the PDS system, the cooperatives took up activities of stocking and selling goods and services. The success of the cooperative movement in India was further strengthened by the efforts of Dr. V.V. Kurian.
It is managed by elected representatives from the farmers. They have employed me as the professional manager.
The Gujarat Milk Producers Marketing Federation created history as almost an international branding in its product, Amul. This marked a great step in organized retailing. The third phase of organized retailing began with the entry of Bata, where specialized retailing gained credence. In the fourth phase of retail revolution, led by stores like Shoppers Stop, Food World, Nilgiris, the Kemp chain, Lifestyle, etc., flagged off the beginning of supermarket retailer, specialty retailer, the franchisee retailer, discount retailer, and the service retailer. The new avatar of retailing has acknowledged the customer as the lord. This phase of retailing also has brought into effect two different categories of retailing, one being the store retailer and another the non-store retailer, such as direct retailing, catalogs and mailers, TV home shopping, and finally the virtual store or retailing on the internet. So now the customer is truly the king. With competition looming large in the retail management has also reached a level of sophistication. The success of any retailer, large or small, depends on how much he absorbs of the retail concepts. Retail management is all about providing the best services to the customers in terms of right product, right price, right place, and the right timing. Therefore, to integrate all these, a retailer has to work out a strategy and offer the best product retail mix. The elements of a retail mix, when put in the form of a matrix, will appear like the 9 planetary positions drawn by an astrologer to predict a person's future. They are customer service, location, merchandise mix, personal selling, retail strategy, price, ambience, store design and display, and advertising and promotion. Like the planets, the elements of retail mix also contribute to the success of a retail store, both individually and collectively. Therefore, to achieve success, we need committed retail management. With the glamour, glitz, attractive pay packages, incentives, etc., retail management is a sure visa to the new world of opportunities for one and all. The future of retail is bright in India. The future for growth of retail services such as business automation, products and services related to store design and visual merchandising is expected to be in the region of $150 billion. It is the next sunrise industry after information technology.
Okay, if you look at, there are a lot of opportunities. Okay, so one of the catching factor for most of the global retailers is our population and the changing demographics. So since we are an emerging economy, there are a lot of there's a unexplored potential for organized retailing. So that's why we call it as one of the sunrise industry in terms of investment, technology, real estate development, and a lot of other aspects, which is very key to the retail industry. So that way that's where we can conclude that this is one of the most potential or an industry with a higher growth potential. Okay, this shows how the sector has evolved. Okay, so from 2006 it was just 500, and 2016 this is a recent statistics, it is 8,500. Okay, so maybe in this 4 years also it might have reached some 10 to 12,000. Okay, so we don't have any recent data. So if you look at this shows that how this evolution has happened and how the Indian retail sector is evolving. So it is 15 to 16 percentage growth in a matter of 10 years. So what are the key reasons by which Indian retail sector's growth has happened? Okay. So one is with respect to favorable demographics. Okay. So demographics being very favorable in the sense with respect to our population, our income data, or our per capita income increasing, etc. So that has contributed to the consumers' need for better products and better services. So that's what we look at with respect to the changing demographics as one of the reasons for growth of Indian retail sector. Okay. Next, we are looking at with respect to increase in income. Okay, so with the industry, okay, if you look at in general over a period of time, Indian business sector has evolved. Okay, so you have investment happening in IT sector, other sectors like manufacturing, agribusiness, etc. People's access to income has increased, which ultimately led to the increase in purchasing power. Okay, so that way, that also contributed to the growth of retail sector. Third, if you look at it, has become one of the interesting thing or one of the key factors, that is the change in consumer mindset. Okay, so consumer mindset over a period of time it is being changed because as my income increases or my access to uh, my finance increases or money increases, I would like to have better products and better services to be provided. And with the information, okay, so you have a different the information what consumer receive through media. Consumer felt that okay, I need, why can't I get better products with the amount what I'm going to pay. So that way the consumer mindset has changed with respect to getting or to have better products and services. Fourth factor is brand consciousness, because so brand consciousness as over a period of time has evolved, starting from each category of product where consumer prefer to have better brands and better value for the money what they are going to pay. And finally, the credit access. Okay, so credit actually has changed. Okay, the increase in the banking options. Okay, you have credit cards and other products which is available, which made easy finance accessible to the consumer. So that also led to the growth of retail sector in India. So this sums up with respect to some what we have discussed till now. The demand actually which has been increasing with respect to rapid urbanization, because the city development actually has happened in the past 20 years. You have a lot of cities coming up, and you have better work opportunities for people. Okay, so that way that rapid urbanization has also contributed to the growth. And innovation in financing, like what we have discussed with credit cards and more banks which is providing credit and money to people. So that also increases, easy credit also has increased consumers to buy more products, and which ultimately led to the growth of retail sector. And investment, okay, you have FDI increasing, you have a lot of foreign retailers also trying to come and establish their business in India. So that also has contributed to the growth because of the potential what is there in Indian market. And finally, the government's policy support also, that also has contributed to the growth of Indian retail sector. So one of the important things what has contributed to the Indian retail sector from policy point of view is that the GST introduction. So GST actually has contributed much to the retail development, followed by the FDI relaxations. So looking at the Indian retail sector, we have different formats which is available: departmental stores, hyper supermarkets, and specialty stores, and cash and carry stores, which is predominantly a B2B retailing. Okay, so cash and carry stores primarily, if you look at, you have players like Metro, Reliance is there. So these retailers actually provide products to the individual retailers. As a consumer, we cannot go directly. So there is a minimum requirement or quantity what you need to purchase from cash and carry stores. We predominantly classify it as B2B retailing. Even though it is said that B2B retailing, in some cases people go and buy, but strictly speaking, it is a B2B retailer. So most of the formats which is available in global level is still present in India. But if you look at some of the abroad markets, you have warehouse clubs. Okay, so warehouse clubs, or you take the case of super centers where you have a large retailer and who will be selling at a wholesale rate. Okay, so here individual consumers can go and buy the products. Okay, for example, you take the case of Costco is a wholesale retailer where individual consumers can go buy. So they, especially in US market, they call it as warehouse club. Then Sam's Club is there. Okay, that is which is under Walmart and Walmart also has super centers where the area wise or the category of products which is available will be very large. Okay, so if you go and search in YouTube, you can see the super centers and Sam's Club, where if you look at it, will be larger than what we see some of the retail outlets what we see in India. So that way it will be quite different. That super centers and warehouse clubs are not present in India, but otherwise most of the retail formats is available in India. Okay. So those are some of the formats, and we look at with respect to the value terms. Okay, so in value terms, if you look at $1,200 is currently the 2021, it is expected to reach 1,200, and 2026 also it is supposed to go around 1,800. So in general, if you look at market growth has been 21% over the years. Okay. One of the interesting thing what was contributed to growth was the FDI confidence index. Okay, strictly speaking, compared with the other countries, relatively we have a better confidence. Okay, 1.54 is the FDI confidence, but look at the some of the other countries, we need to improve. Okay, so in terms of investment, since if you look at population wise, if you compare with a country like China, still we are lagging behind. Okay, so that way we need to improve the FDI confidence so that you have more investments in Indian retail sector. So when you have more investments, you have more job opportunities also coming up. So that way, the FDI confidence has to be improved as a policy point, so that we have more investments which is happening in retail sector. Okay. From the product point of the product category share, food and grocery is the largest with close to 66%, followed by apparel. Footwear and pharmacy is relatively very less. Okay, so you can say that food and grocery is the major sector where most of the retailers have presence. Okay. Online retailing, if you look at it is close to 33. Okay, 2018 it was to the 33, and now it would be around $50 billion. Okay, so if you look at that, online retailing also has large potential in Indian markets. Okay, so what are the key reasons by which we have a fragmented retailing? So one of the major reasons is that you have a low per capita income and apparent poverty. One of the reasons which has been cited as a fragmented retailing. So fragmented retailing in the sense, if you look at looking back the statistics what we have discussed, still if you look at 75 years after independence, still our organized retail is just around 18%. Okay, when you look at the population parameters and the area wise, it should have been more organized than unorganized. Okay, so when you look at organized retailing, the one of the advantage from the consumer's point is that you will have products which is available at a lower rate, and you have economies of scale which can be achieved through organized retailing. So one of the reasons by which the fragmented retailing is the low per capita income, and finally you have another reason is that predominantly we never had any spending culture. Okay, so when you look at Indian markets, it's more saving, or when you look at Indian consumers, or our social and cultural orientation is more towards savings focused, and we predominantly never have that spending culture. Okay, so compared with US or any other country, with us predominantly the spending is done through financial instruments like credit cards, etc. We never had that mindset. Okay, so we have family orientation and savings focused, which may have contributed to the low or a slow growth of retailing. Finally, you have infrastructure facilities, also one of the major limitations for Indian retailing. So when you look at with respect to the Western markets, where they have a clear-cut focus with respect to developing the commercial establishments, we never had such an clear-cut urban planning. So if you look at the commercial activities in most of the urban areas in Western countries, they have earmarked, or they have clearly demarcated areas where they are going to establish retailers, and with adequate spacing, adequate parking facility and access routes. Okay, so most of the cases, if you look at abroad countries, they have the downtown development which is extensively done so that retail industry get flourished. Okay, and finally you have expensive supply chain also. Supply chain is one of the major issues what Indian retail is facing. Why? Because we have a dearth of good roads. Okay, over a period of time, our highway connectivity is improving, but that is not good enough. Okay, so we require more storage facilities, better logistics, and road connectivity and rail connectivity, which will enhance or which will contribute to the growth of Indian retail sector. So that way, these are some of the key reasons which might have affected the growth of Indian retail sector. looking at the policy part, 1991 there was the liberalization has happened, and afterwards, after 1991, government permitted FDI or foreign direct investment in some of the key sectors. Okay, so 51% was allotted for Indian retail sector, but there are some political objections to put more than 50% in multi-brand retail, because one of the reasons which is cited is that you have players like Walmart with uh, big financial muscle, which may over a period of time can be a major player in Indian retail sector, and it may prevent any other competitors to flourish in Indian market. So that was one of the reasons, and it said that maybe it will affect the small time retailers or small unorganized retailers, where you have a lot of employment being generated, and so that way, if you look at you have larger players or larger global players coming, the closure or the business getting affected for these players are cited as one of the reasons for preventing some of the large investments or 100% FDI in multi-brand retailing. So over a period of time, if you look at, government has increased the share of foreign direct investments in this sector. Okay. So next, we will be looking at with respect to some of the key interesting factors of the FDI policy. Okay. One of the important things from the academic point of view is that policy becomes very critical for any industry. Okay? So that's we need to look at the policy and some of the interesting aspect of Indian FDI policy. Okay. So one of the interesting policy which is being put forward as part of our FDI is that you need to have 50% FDI in back-end infrastructure. So back-end infrastructure in the sense, you have whichever retailer, foreign entity who is coming to India, they need to invest in back-end infrastructure in terms of developing warehouses and other logistics and supply chain. So if you're looking at with respect to strictly looking at from the policy point, it is a really good policy. But on the other angle, if you look at what is the drawback or what can be the probable lacuna or what can be one of the constraints for when you look at this policy, 50% investment you get is close to 250 to 200 crore investment what government is expecting to have in back-end infrastructure. So what is the issue with this policy? Anything which you that comes to your mind? Any random thoughts? Okay. So it's government is saying that okay, you need to have investment of 250 to 220 crores for back-end infrastructure. So one point it's a good thought. Okay, you have investment and you will have better warehouses and better supply chain systems in India. But is there an issue with respect to this policy?
Sir, can I speak?
Sure.
Sir, usually if we consider the developed nations, the government takes up the responsibility of developing infrastructure. So here, is it that the government is expecting the foreign companies to contribute to the development of logistics and
Yeah, government want 250 to 220 crores to be invested in back-end infrastructure. That is, the foreign entity has to invest.
Sir, in that case, if being a commercial organization, so I will definitely not look at it from positive point of view. It will be a huge expenditure for the company.
I fully agree that it's a huge expenditure for the company. But if you look at once they enter the Indian market, they need to invest in back-end infrastructure.
That is the policy norm. Yeah.
Let it be a policy norm, but for their benefit
also.
in long run, they need to do the investment.
Yes.
Okay, so but still there is an issue. Okay, so what is your thought, students? Okay, nothing complicated. Okay, you can simply think. Okay, assume that you are a retailer and government is saying that okay, you need to invest 250 to 220 crores. In policy terms, you need to show that okay, I am investing at least some percentage in back-end infrastructure. So what is the issue there? You can make a guess. Okay, what can be the reason? So. Any random guesses you can look at? Anybody? Okay, if you look at one of the interesting thing, if you look at with respect to supply chain systems in India is not fully utilized. Okay, so many times you have warehouses which is not fully being utilized. So if the person is again investing or he is renting out an existing facility, does it add to our existing supply chain systems or warehouses? No, it is not going to add anything. So he may rent out the space or he may get a lease agreement. So with the government expectation of creating a new infrastructure or a backend infrastructure, it is not going to happen. If the foreign entity decides like that, government expecting is that okay, he is going to invest, he will purchase the land, he will create warehouses so that in a long run it will add to the Indian or India's backend infrastructure or take the case of let it be food or any other, it will contribute to the backend infrastructure so that we can have better storage capacities or better support systems. So if that is not going to happen, then naturally this policy will backfire. Clear. So that option is always available because we are not utilized. Okay, most of the infrastructure which is available still not utilized to the full potential. So that part you need to be very careful. Okay, so from the retailer's point of view, like sir mentioned, nobody want to invest so much amount, so he can go for a lease. Okay, yeah. So policy terms, he says that okay, I am going it for 100-year lease. Okay, like you mentioned, I have invested. Okay, anyway, I have to pay and get it. So that way, if you are not looking at that, then the entire policy can backfire. So that is something which is very interesting when you look at the Indian retail sector. Okay. Next, we are looking at with respect to 100 million. Okay, so this is something which is very interesting. That is, you have a minimum FDI of 100 million and 51% stake of the foreign entity imply. Okay, that there should be a minimum investment. Okay, so whatever it is there, the you need to have 100 FDI million US dollars to be invested by the foreign entity. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so if since the potential is there, he can invest. Other interesting thing is that 30% sourcing from small industries. Okay, this is something which is very tricky. Okay, so the government says that you need to have 30% local sourcing. Okay, so whatever products you are going to sell, you need to have a domestic sourcing. So from a global retailer's point of view, is there an issue with respect to 30% sourcing? So when you look at brands like apparel brands like your Zara is there, then you have brands like Armani is there. Okay, so some of the global retailers, Armani is there. Even if you take the case of furniture retailer, IKEA itself. Okay, so all these retailers who are going to operate their stores in India, they need to do a local sourcing of 30%. So what is the issue with respect to this 30% sourcing? What is your thought? Okay, for example, you take the case of you can take the case of any industry. Okay, foreign brands which is coming to India. So when they do a local sourcing, what is the issue? Where the problem is? Okay, Indian people buying nature and culture. Okay, that also matters. I agree. But what about the sourcing part? Okay, I need to source it from the local people. Okay, so for example, if you take the case of a brand like Armani, they need to source the local materials, or they need to make the products by our small and cottage industries. Okay, or small and SME industries, small and medium scale industries. So what is the problem there? Nothing complicated. Okay, it's all simple things. Okay, if you look at automobile sector, it has been some of the news articles it's clearly reflect. Okay, so most of them what they do is that some of the famous brands they bring it as complete knockdown units. Okay, so basically what it means is that you will bring all the parts to India, then they assemble it here. So you take the case of apparels, or you take the case of any other category. So what is the issue there? You can go for an local sourcing. What is the problem? Take the case of any global apparel retailer. Okay, yes, Nandan, you want to say something?
Transportation costs, sir. Huge transportation cost.
No, I will make it quite simple to you. Okay, let us take the case. You are part of the global sourcing team of Armani. Okay, Armani, if you look at, or Zara, they are global retailers. Okay, so their appeal in terms of their product is very high. Okay, so they have country of origin, or you take the case, you say that it is an Italian brand or a French brand. The country of origin actually makes a lot of difference to the brand. So when it comes to India, I'm asking, government is saying that, okay, you being a global retailer, 30% of the product what you are going to sell in Indian markets should be sourced from Indian small scale industries. Okay, that primarily means Armani need to go for the sourcing to a local apparel manufacturer, and you need to tell them that, okay, this is the product, and on behalf of Armani, they need to make this product and give it back to them so that they can sell it. So what is the problem there?
Sir, quality issue, Armani piecing.
Okay, yeah. One issue is that quality. Okay, when you look at the small or cottage industries, okay, that is, take the case of your apparels. One of the important thing is that quality becomes major issue. Why? Because they have certain standard designs. And another thing what we look at is with respect to is that compared with the other countries where there is a lot of mechanization or a technology driven production, we never had such an mechanization what has happened in small and cottage industries. Still there is a lot of way to go. So take the case of our hand weaving, etc. Still we follow the traditional methods. So the requirement can be a mismatch when you look at a global retailer. So that way, if you look at it as a pretty big challenge for these retailers. Okay. For example, recently, if you look at IKEA, they said that they are still, with this terms and conditions, still they are able to reach 10 to 15% of sourcing. And they are saying that another 5 or 10 years, it will take them to reach the 30% level. Why? Because the design, the sourcing, the quality parameters is quite different for these retailers. So starting from the scratch, they have to do it. And many times what happens is that when you look at a foreign brand, the consumer expectation is also more or less a design, and from the product they predominantly want, or the consumer who is going to buy these products, they want to have a product which is manufactured in French or Italy, not in India. So if it is manufactured in India, then it should hold the same standards or same quality standards what they manufacture or what they sell at the global level. So that way there can be a conflict actually. So this is something which is very tricky clause which has been put forward by the government. So this is another interesting thing of the policy terms. Okay, when you look at the policy, okay, next we look at with respect to the cities. Okay, cities is another classification policy constraint. They said that which is more than 1 million, you are whichever city which is having more than 1 million, you are able to allow to start their outlet. Okay, and another interesting thing is that e-commerce is not possible. Okay, so two things if you look at which is very interesting, which has been put forward. Okay, 1 million, if you look at, there are tier 2 cities which is close to 1 million, which is having a higher potential. So you cannot restrict that. Okay, you cannot be very choosy with respect to the city when a foreign retailer is coming to operate in India. So he will be looking at with respect to the potential, and on that basis he need to decide, okay, which city he want to choose. Another part is that e-commerce. Okay, e-commerce is well established. Okay, let it be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Wherever you have access, e-commerce is penetrating. So you cannot say that, okay, you cannot do e-commerce, because e-commerce is flourishing like anything in Indian market. So most of the retailers want to get that access to e-commerce so that they can have a better reach. Okay, these are some of the biggest issues when you look at the Indian retail FDA policy. One is the backend infrastructure, followed by the sourcing part. Okay, these are some of the major challenges for international retail players. One is the availability of retail space. Okay, so like we already mentioned, the higher rental cost, the development cost also actually has maybe one of the major constraints for the retailer. And there is some clarification of certain policy. Okay, so the policy with respect to backend infrastructure and local sourcing is something which is pretty challenging for most of the retailers. And you have the procedures and the risk also. Okay, so a policy change may happen. So that is one of the bigger challenges for most of the retailers. And you have currency fluctuation. And finally, as a foreign entity, we need to get the right set of partners. Okay, so the classic example you can take the case is that Walmart Bharti. Okay, so with a lot of fanfare, Walmart entered Indian market, and the partner was Bharti. Okay, so afterwards there were issues, and finally both of them had to exit. Okay, so that way getting at a right partner is something which is very important. Just like if you look at Starbucks and Tata. Okay, so if you look at Starbucks was very keen to, because Tata, because of their legacy, and if you look at the brand the trust which the brand has. So if you're getting a right partner is equally important when you look at when you are entering a foreign market like India. Okay, so this is some of the constraints what we have already discussed. Okay, that is the policy followed by inefficiency in supply chain. Okay, so next we will be quickly looking at with respect to the rural retailing. One is the case of ITC's e-Chowpal. Okay, so most of you are quite aware of ITC's agribusiness division. They have taken an effort called ITC e-Chowpal so that they can provide supply chain, a more efficient supply chain, and also a better sourcing from the consumers, from the farmers. So primarily e-Chowpal focused a technology uh, enabled environment by which Indian farmer can get more information about the prices and also weather, followed by farm information. Okay, so it tried to unshackle the potential of Indian farmer who has been trapped in a vicious cycle of low risk taking ability and lower investment and low productivity. Okay, so the technology actually enabled them to connect with the farmers, and it also provided a framework so that they can easily get connected to the consumers and source the products. Okay, so since the ITC has an agribusiness division and they are into food business, they try to have a direct connect with the consumers, so connect with the farmers so that they can do the sourcing. So as part of this e-Chowpal development, they also felt that okay, there should be a means by which consumer or they can sell the product to the farmers. Okay, because they also have an FMCG products to be sold to the farmers. They developed a retail outlet which is entirely focused or entirely targeted towards the retail for consumers in rural markets. Okay, so that particular retail outlet is called Chowpal Sagar. Okay, you have a hub and spoke model which was developed by in this model. Okay, that is Chowpal Sagar. Okay, this is how Chowpal Sagar looks like. Okay, we have a small video of Chowpal Sagar, and afterwards we will move to Godrej Aadhar. Godrej also had a similar effort which has been taken which under the Agrovet division called as Godrej Aadhar. Okay, so one interesting thing is that this format is entirely applicable to Indian context. Okay, so if you look at the rural retailing kind of a thing, it is predominantly or a low cost model, or you take the case of a rural retailing concept, is predominantly applicable in Indian context. Okay, for academic information or academic interest, we need to know that okay, we have efforts taken by some of the prominent corporate companies in India to focus on rural retailing, which is very interesting. Okay, so let's look at ITC's e-Chowpal Sagar, and afterwards we will continue the discussion. Okay.
Bhupen and Kailash are two generations of farmers from Ichna. They both belong to the e-Chowpal in their village. ITC's internet portal for farmers, e-Chowpal, brings them farm updates.
Sir, video is not visible to us.
Okay. Is it now visible?
Sir, it is showing that presenting the screen. 1 minute, sir.
Sir, visible, sir.
Bhupen and Kailash are two generations of farmers from Ichna. They both belong to the e-Chopal in their village. ITC's internet portal for farmers, e-Chopal, brings them farming advice and updates on weather and market prices. Ashutosh is the Sanchalak of their e-Chopal. Trained by ITC, he is a source of advice for farmers in the area.
तो कास्ट कम हुई, जानकारी बढ़ी, तो उसको लेकर के काफ़ी परिवर्तन आया। जब से 2003 के बाद से आप समझिए हर वर्ष में एक नई क्रांति की तरीके से आईटीसी ने जितनी जानकारियाँ अधिकाधिक उपलब्ध कराएं, तो हमारे यहाँ किसान बहुत ज़्यादा मात्रा में उसको फ़ायदा मिला।
Since he joined e-Chopal, Kailash's output and income from farming has gone up threefold. He grows 3 crops in the year. It is the same for Bhupen and his father, Vishambarna. They now access high-quality seeds, organic fertilizer, and pesticides. They grow soya and maize with the rains, wheat in the winter, followed by lentils.
चौपाल आने के बाद ये हुआ कि हमको यहाँ पे सारी जो चीज़ें हम बाहर मार्केट से खरीदते थे, मान लो खाद था, बीज था या अन्य दवाइयाँ हैं, कीटनाशक वगैरह, खरपतवार नाशक है, ऐसी चीज़ें जो हम बाहर से मतलब लेते थे वो भी डुप्लीकेट होता था। ये चौपाल मतलब ही चौपाल आने के बाद में ये सारी चीज़ें शुद्ध मतलब अच्छी चीज़ें जो है गुणवत्ता वाली हमें यहीं पे सारी चीज़ें मिलने लगी। और मिलने के बाद में क्या हुआ कि उससे जो है हम लोगों का टाइम बचत हुआ, टाइम के साथ साथ में पैसा भी बचत हुआ।
Their investment in productivity is fully rewarded in the Hardoi Mandi when they sell to ITC. e-Chopal provides transparent market linkage through the Samyojak, ITC's buyer in the Mandi. It is a process that is totally different from what happens elsewhere in the Mandi. Selling to ITC ensures that their grain is tested for quality. Electronic weighing guarantees that they get full value for every consignment. And straight after delivery, they receive full payment.
मंडी की अपेक्षा आईटीसी में हमको लाभ हुआ कम से कम 1100-1200 रुपये का। उतने ही गेहूँ का, उतने ही माल का, मतलब 1100 रुपये 1200 रुपये हमको हर ट्राली पे अधिक मिला।
ITC is a stimulus for change. ITC demonstration plot for high yields is an incentive to high profit in the next season. ITC enables farmers to access facilities like Kisan credit cards to meet sowing expenses. Kailash's new house is an expression of his gains from farming. Elder son Avinash, college graduate, worked with him. Younger Rishikant is finishing high school. As for income grew, Kailash invested in crops, opening up a new source of income. He also bought land in which he is growing lentils and vegetables. Bhupen's family has also moved to a new house there. Married for 2 years, he is studying for his BA education. Vidhi is completing an MA in sociology. Trained in computer maintenance, Bhupen works in Hardoi during the day. In response to the growing purchasing power of farmers like Bhupen and Kailash, ITC created Chopal Sagar, rural hypermarkets that stock everything that farmers need under one roof. An environment for their rising standard of living. The final link of ITC's infrastructure for profitable farming.
गाँव का रहने वाला 80% भारत है और शहरों का रहने वाला 20% लोग इंडिया है। फोकस यही होना चाहिए, जैसे आईटीसी ने बहुत जल्दी सोच लिया कि गांव का और किसका उत्थान करके हम देश का उत्थान कर सकते हैं, अपना उत्थान कर सकते हैं, कि गांव का उत्थान करके, कृषक का उत्थान करके एक बढ़िया भारत का निर्माण किया जा सकता है।
Look at one of the interesting thing is that the maintaining that particular facility is cost wise it is very big. Okay, so for a place like rural areas, if you look at that infrastructure and maintaining that inventory itself is a big cost for the company like ITC, but still they are doing because it's a means by which they can directly reach the rural consumers, and also rural consumers will get quality inputs, okay, farm inputs and other products which they require in daily life. So that way, this model is very unique because it's not just limited to FMCG products. You might have seen in the video itself, they have selling farm inputs also. Indirectly, you have it will facilitate other companies also to use this facility to sell their products. So that way, this is something which is a very unique model because you have FMCG products along with agriculture inputs also being sold like seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides. That's how this model becomes very interesting when you're looking at from the retailing point. Godrej Aadhar is another case followed by Tata Kisan. Okay, most of this two retail, okay, let me Godrej or Aadhar, it is predominantly selling agriculture inputs so that the consumers or the farmers get quality agriculture inputs which is required for farming. Okay, so let's conclude here. Okay, so to have major opportunities when you look at retail sector is that one is the Indian consumer is changing, and when you're looking at with respect to the retail sector, there are a lot of opportunities for retail and food service followed by placements for you also, because in certain sectors, if you look at, you require MBA people or trained people so that they can manage the business. Okay? It's not just limited to store operations, it is about the sourcing. Okay? So many times people assume that being an MBA it is just about being a store manager. No, you have opportunities in terms of buying, sourcing, people management, etc. So a retail sector can provide an opportunity for a lot of people who are postgraduates in MBA or who are specialized in marketing and retailing. Okay. To conclude, we can say that the industry is having a huge potential, and over a period of time, you can say that this will become a very dynamic industry and ensure that you have a better convenience and choices available to consumers and better opportunities for postgraduates and employment for a lot of people. Okay, so this winds up our first session about the intro. Okay, you have any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, we will just go to the next topic. Okay, so we try to finish it as early as possible. Okay, so I believe at 11:15 you have to wind up, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 4 minutes we will just quickly discuss and we will just wind it up. Okay, I have sent an article. Yes.
The e-commerce is boom flourishly.
Yeah.
How they affect to retail industry, sir?
No, e-commerce, if you look at what are the interesting thing with respect to e-commerce or retailing, what happened, how it may affect the store retailers is that now since people are moving or the consumer's consumption pattern or purchase behavior is changing, most of the other retailers, or you take the case of let it be store retailers also, they need to have presence in online. Okay, so we call it as currently, if you look at it global level, we call it as omni-channel retailing. Okay, so you cannot limit the consumers' purchase only to stores. Okay, so consumers would prefer to buy a product or service through multiple channels. So with the digitalization, what is happening in retailing, e-commerce may change, or e-commerce will change the way consumer buy products. So that way, all the retailers need to keep in mind, or retailers need to adopt technology to compete with the e-commerce or the e-commerce. So that is how it is going to affect the Indian retail sector in general. Okay. I hope I have answered the question.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, let's look at this article which has been shared by the title is Boosting Mall Revenues Through Advanced Analytics. Okay, we'll just quickly go through it. Okay, so one of the major challenges, okay, which has been commonly said, or which has been raised by shopping malls, is that their lack of data. Okay, data as a means to analyze what the consumer trend is. Okay, if you look at consumer shift has already happened in e-commerce. There is an increased spend online, online spend. Keep in mind that people prefer to buy products through online. With the recent pandemic, it has increased actually. So most of the people don't want to go outside, so better they want to buy the products through online. So one of the critical challenges for malls is that how they need to cope up with the current scenario. So with the data, what is available, some of the data what is available is tenant sales is available, then the category performance, which product category is performing, and you will get a fair idea about what is the shopper behavior also. So you can use the data for predictive. Okay, what predictive predominantly what it means is that you're looking at the future, and prescriptive you are looking at the existing data, and you are trying to make a decision, or we are trying to develop a strategy based on the data which is available. Okay. So we look at with respect to how advanced analytics can add value. Okay, so one is with respect to assembling the optimal mix of stores. Okay, so most of the cases, the retailers never have any data-driven approach. So data-driven approach in the sense, I need to look at the sale data of the individual retailers, and on that basis, I need to decide what are the tenants I should have in a shopping mall. Okay, so how many apparel retailers I need to know, how I should have, how many electronic retailers I should have. These things you need to decide based on the data. So most of the cases, there is nothing sort of a data-driven approach which is being taken or adopted by the retailers. Okay, so we need to decide upon what is the which are the stores which can attract consumers, and you need to look at whether your anchor store or the main store is driving traffic, and you decide, or you need to look at whether this tenants what you have can generate cross sales. Okay, that primarily means that one store should be provide, or it should direct traffic to the other stores. Okay, so you need to decide upon what should be the combination of stores which may give a higher collective sales. Okay, this is one of the insights which has got from a study Nation Mall. So they looked at with respect to the transaction data, and they try to look at with respect to how the stores is affecting their total business. Okay. One of the insight what they have gained is that their apparel heavy apparel store, which is the main anchor store, is weakening the sale of other small retailers, but it is increasing the accessory and the cosmetic stores. Okay, so the conclusion is that when you have a anchor store which is an apparel, there is no point in having additional apparel stores. Better you need to focus on stores on accessories and cosmetics. Okay, so which may increase the overall sales for, or overall revenue for the shopping mall. So when you look at with respect to the tenant which is having a lower productivity or lower sales, we need to look at with respect to whether this particular retailer is giving a cross productivity or a cross sales to the other unit. Okay, and if it's a lower sales and it is having a lower cross productivity, better you need to shift that particular tenant or shop to a smaller size retail unit. Okay, or you should shift that particular retailer to a space which is lesser in floor area. Okay, so this shows what is the tool they are looking at with respect to resizing or relocating. Resizing primarily means you need to move to a location or within the mall which is smaller in floor area. Okay, next is with respect to the right location, matching tenants to the locations. Okay, we have the right tenant right location tool which help us to identify which tenant should fit in that particular location. Okay, in terms of that particular retail outlet and the location. Okay, so one key tool what is used is occupancy cost, which means that occupancy cost is what is the annual occupancy cost, which is divided by the annual sales. Okay. So depending upon the changing of the locations, what the retailer could identify that occupancy cost has come down. Okay. So some cases, what happens is that the one of the retailer may pay a higher price with respect to the sale. Okay, so you need to compare the sale, and on that basis you need to decide upon what is the cost of rent you need to pay. So how it works is that some cases the retailer will have a higher sales, but the rent what he is paying is very less. But on the other hand, some cases the retailer will have a lower sales, but he will be paying a higher cost, so which may affect the retailer to exit that space. Okay, that's why when you're looking at occupancy cost, you need to consider the sales revenue and the cross sales which it can generate, and then you need to decide upon which tenant should occupy which floor or which retail outlet in the shopping mall. Okay. Finally, you need to decide upon the lease. Okay, lease amount which you need to decide based on the quantity and the quality of the traffic which comes to that particular retail. Okay. So when you're looking at with respect to the advanced analytics or data-driven methods, it helps us to identify what should be the rental value for that particular retailer, or what should be the rent to be given by that particular retailer, and it helps us to decide in a very comprehensive manner. Okay, so the tool what we call as the estimated rental revealed that, okay, that is what I already mentioned, that low performing tenants were paying higher rents, which is disproportionately than the average rent. Okay, so a lower performing tenants in terms of lesser sales, if he is paying more rent, he may tend to vacate the space after a period of time. Okay, so that may affect that presence of that particular category in the retail outlet. So better you need to take into account the performance, and on that basis you need to decide upon how much rent they need to pay. Okay, and finally you have a tool called geospatial analytics, which is used for mall revenue management. We look at with respect to how the sale is driven and who is spending money in that particular retail outlet, which help us to decide upon what should be the channels, or what are the modes by which you need to reach to the consumers. Okay, so which are the categories you need to focus, whether any store is complementing or it is whether your another outlet is affecting the sales. So this geospatial analytics is one of the tools which enable the retailer to identify whether how each other retail outlets presence, omni-channel or online or e-commerce is affecting your business. Okay, so these are some of the data-driven techniques which is used to understand and to refine your retail sales in shopping malls. Okay, so this is something which you need to understand, because mostly retailing is done now by data-driven methods. Okay, so that's all from my side. Thank you. So you have any questions, you can tell or you can ask. I will share the PPT with sir. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I hope the session was useful to you. Okay, because we have a time constraint, because whatever we are discussing, it is spread over 2 sessions. Okay, so we will try to discuss. I would like to hear from you. Okay, then we go for the discussion. Okay, unfortunately, we have a limitation with respect to the time. But I thank the SBM Institute for giving me this opportunity, and I would comment that you try to interact the best possible manner you had. Okay, that I appreciate.
Sir, I would like to thank you on behalf of SDM College of Engineering and Technology, Dharwad. Sir, the insights you gave, especially with respect to the opportunities and threats for retail market in India. Okay, so was very insightful, and the second part, though it was short, but definitely it was quite interesting, boosting mall revenues through the advanced analytics. Okay, so definitely, sir, we would like to look forward for further interaction. So I will communicate with you further, sir, only for a session on questions and answers, if possible. Okay, sure. At your convenience only, sir. Yeah. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Sir, I would like to go for the attendance of the class. So, yes.
Yeah, I will leave. Okay. Yeah. Thank you and good day ahead. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Good day. Okay, students, please listen. The manual attendance is not possible now because you have to join the next class at 11:30. So you need to send a text message, your name, okay, that's it, the way it is there in the attendance register. Okay, you send your name, okay, to my individual WhatsApp number. You all have my WhatsApp number, so just send your name, that's it, nothing more than that. Say for example Suman, Nandan. Okay, in case of Meghna, there are two Meghnas, you need to send your surname as well, like Meghna Lokhande or Meghna Kalburgi. In case of Akshay also, there are Pujari and Kulkarnis are there, so you need to send your surname. Other students, just send your name to my WhatsApp number. Okay, and I will share the feedback form in the group itself. Okay, and after your class you can fill it, no problem. But before the lunch break gets over, before 2:30 you need to fill the feedback form, because the HR students will have another session at 3:30. So I hope the instructions are clear. I'll repeat. So send your name to my individual WhatsApp number as attendance. Second, I'll share the feedback form for this session in the WhatsApp group itself. Okay, so fill it before 2:30. That's it. Thank you one and all. So I'm going to end the meeting now.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.